So ready, steady, go. Let's have fun with the Isomalt. We'll try to create this lovely topper. I'm going to get through the process of cooking the Isomalt and cooking the rock sugar, and then creating those dolphins and all other decorations out of Isomalt. So in case that you've got any questions to ask, please do ask. I will try to answer while I will be obviously demonstrating all those techniques. I will kind of look from time to time to see what sort of questions you've got to ask, but if your questions will come up after the live session, then you can always add your questions in the group, and I will be more than happy to give the right answers. So we'll start creating some parts of the design, and then I will explain you how I've cooked the Isomalt and rock sugar. I just thought it will just save the time if we'll start pouring the plaques first and then cook the sugar, so that you know what to do in future. So let's have a quick look what I've got here. Now I will be obviously talking about the equipment, but there should be PDFs and videos attached in this group, and you will be able to see what sort of equipment is needed to work with Isomalt. The Isomalt does involve a lot of equipment. It's not like just working with fondant, where you would need practically a rolling pin and some fondant and icing sugar. With the Isomalt, we do need few bits and pieces, which I'm going to describe along with the process of creating this plaque. So as I said, we will aim to create this cake topper. It can be used as a cake topper or like individual decorations for a cake. So I'm going to start by creating a base. So what I did here was literally just to cover a plaque, a board, with some fondant, and I've applied some embossings just to create a bit of interest. So there is no need for anything fancy. You can even just leave the fondant flat. I just thought it would be nice to pour the plaque on the fondant, just to give you an idea how you are going to set your decoration on top of a cake which is covered with fondant. But in case that you want to stick the decoration on a cake covered with buttercream or chocolate, and you want practically just to apply that decoration like any kind of topper, you don't need the fondant. So what I'm going to do first is just to pour some melted Isomalt. So this is like literally clear Isomalt, but the reason why it doesn't look so clear is it was previously used for blowing. So when you blow the Isomalt or any kind of sugar, you intend to pull the sugar and aerate. And once the air gets into the Isomalt, it makes the Isomalt to look not so clear as we get it when we cook it. But I'm going to pour this. I need a base. The best surface to stick my Isomalt decorations into, it will be an Isomalt surface. So you can stick your decorations on fondant, but you will need to use some royal icing, and it will take a lot of time for those decorations to set. While if you've got a nice flat Isomalt board plaque, then all your decorations will just glue better. So when you stick your decorations, ideally will be to have a base made out of Isomalt, and this is what I've created right here. So on top of my fondant, I've just poured some Isomalt just to kind of create a nice surface for my decorations, and this is going to sit on the side, and it will get cold and firm in a little while. In the meantime, I've got other bits ready prepared for you here. I'm using heat-proof silicone mat, and I think you've noticed I've got some heat-proof mats on the table and also some granite table mats. Ideally, it would be to protect your working surface to make sure that it doesn't get affected by the heat. Now, I do have something like a PVC white tablecloth on the table, and I don't want to ruin it because the heat might destroy this PVC. So that was the reason why I've actually set two table mats, and on top of those I put my silicone mats. Now you can use your baking mats, or you can get an extra glossy mat. This is similar with the Stay Fresh mat, which you quite often come across during your sugar work. This is something which you will put on top of your rolled out gum paste in order to preserve and keep everything kind of fresh. So it's up to you if you want to use a textured mat or a clear one. I'm going to use the clear one, as it will be much easier to maneuver. Now, if you want to, you can use a separator, and when I'm talking about separator, I'm referring to kind of a piece of silicone mold. In case that you don't have, like I do, this kind of a straight piece, you can get one of your silicone molds and use the straight edge. And the reason why I'm going to use this as a guide is I'm going to pour two plaques. One of them will be kind of made of runny Isomalt, and it will be poured in one of the sides, and I'm going to get a straight edge. The other one might be a bit untidy, but if I want to join them, then I will have a straight edge which I will practically melt with some heat, and I will be able to stick the second panel into it. So the fact that I've got that straight edge, it will just help me to join the pieces together. But otherwise, if you want to get kind of a rough design, there is no need for you to use this bit of silicone. That was the reason why I've suggested use one of your silicone molds, or just skip and use nothing. I'm going to use it just to show you how that behaves. Also, underneath my silicone mat, I'm going to pop two wooden sticks. The reason why I prefer to use those wooden sticks or cocktail sticks or toothpicks is that it just allows the silicone mold to breathe underneath. Otherwise, the heat will actually make the mat to get stuck to the table, and when you try to lift it to remove the decoration, this might snap. So just be careful when you do it that you've got something very thin underneath, which does allow the air to get underneath the mat. Good. So I've already warmed up in the microwave some pre-colored Isomalt. You see, it's kind of stained with a bit of green. It's not super runny, so I'm going to put this back in the microwave. Put this back in the microwave for a few more seconds. Usually takes few seconds up to a minute, depends on the quantity you've got to warm up, and also it depends on the color. I've noticed that if the Isomalt is colored, it tends to get warmer quicker than when it's clear or when it's got just a little bit of color. So I'll just be warming this up for, as I said, few seconds, and I'm going to pour this and also show you how to add a bit of thank you for your lovely comment. So I've got my my runny Isomalt. So you've noticed just warming this Isomalt for a few seconds in the microwave, it turned up this into a kind of nice liquid. So I'm going to pour this in one side. You don't need to be super precise when you do it. You can just pour it in whatever shape you prefer. I usually intend to go more to this kind of a triangle shape. Okay, and also just for a bit more interest, I'm going to use the gold dust, the glitter spray from House of Cake, and I'm going just to sprinkle a bit of gold dust over. It will actually preserve the shimmer, so you will still be able to see the shimmer even when the sugar gets cold. Also, I do have some rock sugar on the side, which I'm going to use. I put that into a container. And in this container, I've got a sort of silica gel, but it's, to be honest, it's not food grade, so it's cheaper. And it does help to maintain pieces of isomalt or sugar dry, so they don't absorb the humidity. Now this rock sugar, which I'm going to show you how to cook in a sec, it can be put on top of this runny isomalt, or you can skip, you can make the plaque without using those pieces of rock sugar. But as I've mentioned, for a bit more interest, I'm going to add those little pieces. Now you might think, because they are rock sugar, called rock sugar, they might actually add a bit more strength to the panel, but that's not the case. They do intend to get quite crumbly in contact with the hot isomalt. It's literally just for the design. Yeah, it's my pleasure to share all those bits and pieces, just hoping that you will achieve quicker, fantastic results on your decorations. So I'm pretty sure that you will turn up doing beautiful things. So let's have a quick look at our decoration here so that you can understand actually what I did. Yeah, if you look on the back, you've noticed that was a triangle shape, similar with what I did previously. Yeah, and here I actually made a little hole, but the other one the one I've created now is plain. So I did the same thing. I've put some isomalt. I made one of the edges straight, and I've attached few pieces of rock sugar. You can obviously make that hole through the center. You can make it when you pour the plaque, but you can also make the hole later, which I'm going to show you. Now the other plaque, which is on the right, is done in pretty much similar way. You pour the isomalt, and using something like a stick, you just pull that away, so it just gives that kind of effect. But what I'm going to do now is I will create this texture, in order to create that texture, I will need some baking paper. In fact, it's not baking paper, it's parchment paper, as it's a bit stronger, and it does have a bit of wax, so it makes it a bit stronger than just a normal baking paper. So all I need to do is to crinkle the paper. Yeah. So we'll just crinkle the paper and then undo. I will use a baking spray. I actually need to spray another piece of baking paper for whenever I'm going to prepare the rock sugar. So I'll put this on top of the baking tray because I don't want to ruin and cover the whole surface with grease. So I'm just going to spray this paper. Again, just a small area. I don't need to make a huge decoration. And I'm using just a release of cake spray. Any oil-based spray will be fine. And what I'm going to do is on the other side of the mat, not necessarily in here, it can be any surface, but as I've got this ready prepared, I'm going to use this. And on top of that surface, which I already greased, I'm going to pour a bit more isomalt. But as you can notice, that this practically ended up being quite thick as it cooled down. I'm going to put this in the microwave for a few more seconds. Or I can use some of that isomalt which I used to create the plaque. So we'll just put this actually on the top. You don't need to aim for a regular shape, but once I've got those sorted, you will understand what exactly happens here, and you will get a better understanding of what you can create using those textures and consistencies of isomalt. Then I can just pour a bit of this colored one as well. Obviously you can add the shimmer dust if you like we did previously, maybe on a larger quantity, just blobs of dust. Good. And all of those will need to get cold while we are doing the next thing. And for the next thing, I'm actually going to do a splash, you know, that fantastic looking splash which gets very, very popular on cakes now. So those bits which I've already done, they will go on the side and they will get cold soon. Again, I'm going to put those wooden skewers underneath to make sure that they don't stick to the surface. In fact, I do have an extra table here, and that's the one I'm going to use. It's a stainless steel table, so it's quite chill. Good. So yeah, my Isomalt is super runny. I don't need very much, to be honest, to make the splash. To make the splash, I've got a silicone mat, which is quite glossy. But before starting creating the splash, I'm going to put the gloves on, and I'm using a pair of cotton gloves to protect against the sweating and the heat. And then I've got a pair of nitrile gloves, which obviously will prevent the sugar to get stuck onto my cotton gloves, and they will also help to maneuver the sugar. So they are so thin, they will probably not protect against the heat as much as the cotton gloves will do, but it will be fine. So I will pour this Isomalt right in the center of my mat. You've noticed I don't need very much. I only need a little. I'm going to create a small decoration. Now, if, for example, the mat you are going to use is not glossy, then the splash will not turn up super glossy. I'm also going to use a bottle just to shape this over the bottle. And I also need some tape. The tape will help me to secure the mat while it's cooling down. Now, this is runny, but it's not super runny. Oh, in fact, it is runny. But I'm going to pop the bottle right on top of the mat, and then just place this on the top, and then just pour to create the shape. Now, in case that it gets too runny and you don't want this to happen, you can flip it on one side, or it doesn't matter even if it gets, you know, somehow into a weird shape, it's still going to look really nice. So it will also get cold in a sec. I do have a little fan handy, but unfortunately I only have 2 hands, so I can only do one thing at a time. Okay, and you can understand now why I've put my gloves on, because I knew I might get burned if I start working with this hot sugar. So just to make sure I'm protected, I put the gloves on, and that was a good decision. I will try to see if I can stick this on. I did say having just 2 hands sometimes doesn't help very much, but I will try to sort this out somehow. Anyway, if you get anyone to help you, bear in mind that this is very hot, and then the person who's going to help you also will need to wear gloves. Typically, I'm okay to do it on my own, but this time it just seems that it turned up into a bit of a disaster, which is fine. I will show you the downside of trying. Okay. Just seems I need a bit more tape on this side, or horrible, it just doesn't want to listen. I mean, I can just keep this in place, but I really don't want to, you know, just keep my hands onto the mat till it gets cold. But that's just enough. So let's see if we can see it from this angle. I don't think we can. So the best viewing is all from the top. Yep. So I've got those kind of funny shapes, which I can get sorted in a sec by just putting the fan on. Just going to put that to blow over the sugar. Now that we've got the decorations on the side, waiting for those to chill out, we can start cooking the sugar. So I'm going to practically cook the rock sugar first, and then I will just cook the Isomalt, and we'll see how we can color. and how we can you know, start blowing the dolphins and make the fins and all the other decorations. So let's head to the cooking plate and start cooking. And I will also explain you about what sort of equipment and bits are needed in order to cook the rock sugar. So for the rock sugar, I will be using granulated sugar. I mentioned about the baking tray, which I might need at the end when that's going to be cooked. So I've got my heating plate and I'm using an induction plate, and I've got my sugar. I think the recipe for cooking the rock sugar is already on the group, but I will double check in case there is not there. I will add it. So I've got 500 grams of granulated sugar. It's literally just Tate and Lyle, but whatever sugar you use is going to be fine. And I'm going to pour 125 milliliters of water. It's just tap water, nothing fancy about this water. I will turn on the heat. Now, because the sugar sometimes it does have a lot of impurities, I'm trying my best to keep an eye, leave the sugar to melt gradually, and then start boiling in order to preserve the clean sugar. I'm going to use a sieve and a brush the sides, and then just comb the impurities as they come along. I'm going to get some of this water and place my sieve and the brush so that when the sugar will start boiling, I will be able to clean. But in the meantime, I will just gently stir. There is no need to stir vigorously. You just need to stir gently. Allow the sugar to melt gradually. And when it starts boiling, then we can insert a thermometer and double check the temperature. We need to cook the sugar up to 140 degrees. Now, there is no point of checking the temperature now because it did not even started to boil. So it's pointless. After it starts boiling, then we'll need to keep an eye. When it reaches 140 degrees, I'm going to transfer the pot into another bowl, which I've got here, and it's filled with cold water. And I will stop the process of cooking. When this process of cooking will be stopped and I will maintain the temperature of 140 degrees, I will add some royal icing, which I've prepared in advance, like a full tablespoon of royal icing, and that will help me to create the texture of the rock sugar, which I've showed you previously. Yeah, that is your rock sugar. And you can use this rock sugar for lots of projects. You can create different things like decorations with a seaside theme or any kind of rocks. You can also make nice trees out of those, but you just need to either color the royal icing in green or spray the rock sugar with green. So I'm going to increase the temperature now a little and start stirring from time to time just to help the sugar to get dissolved quicker. Now, you've noticed that already I've got some equipment involved. I'm using stainless steel pots, as you do need to make sure that that the pots and the utensils are stainless steel, so they don't put any color onto your sugar. You are going to use the same sort of equipment for cooking the Isomalt, or in future if you are planning to do any sugar work, hot sugar work, you will need the same sort of equipment, so it would be good to kind of get the same sort of thing. Now, when we prepare the rock sugar, we don't use glucose at all, so it's literally just boiling the sugar to 140 degrees, adding the royal icing once the temperature is stabilized at 140 degrees, and then cooking for another 2-3 minutes to get the look of the rock sugar stabilized. I'm going to spray the baking paper, and once the rock sugar is cooked, it will go right here on this baking tray. I can see that you are very quiet, but I did mention if there are any questions even later, if you try to do any part of those decorations in future and you've got questions, you're not very clear about what happens, then you can always, you know, ask them in a group. So we'll raise the temperature now to about, I think it's about 140 degrees Celsius on the plate, but not yet in the sugar. I definitely have about 100 degrees on the sugar because it started to boil. Yeah. Once it starts boiling, it makes sense to remove the scums, as to clean the sugar before it starts boiling is pointless. So I'm going to use this brush. Any kind of utensils you use needs to be clean. The brush, the sieve. I would have and keep one for sugar work. You can't really use it for something else, chocolate or something else, and then use it for sugar. It's not going to work. So can you see how much kind of dirt, impurities I've got here? Oops, this container is a bit too small, so I might need to transfer this into something else larger in size. Okay, so again, just cleaning the sides gently and removing the impurities. Now, as we've got very little amount of water here, comparing with the amount of sugar, we might reach the 140 degrees temperature quite quick. So I'm going to insert the thermometer and double check the temperature. As I did mention, I only need to get to 140 degrees. So, to be honest, it takes a lot of time, but yeah, quite a good amount of time to reach 120, 125. Once you reach that temperature, then everything goes up very quick. Now in here, because we've got less water than we've got when we cook the sugar, the temperature will rise quite quickly. The one which keeps the temperature under control is the water, not the sugar. So we might reach 140 very, very soon. So once we've got that 140, we'll stop the cooking process by plunging the base of the pot into the water. Then we will return to the heating plate, add the royal icing, and kind of help the royal icing to do the job. If, for example, as I say, you want to color the rock sugar, you can add the color into your royal icing. But I normally prefer to make it white and then spray or airbrush with whatever color I want. So it can be, I don't know, green for making trees or bushes. It can be brown for making any kind of rocks. You can keep that in white to mimic clouds. Or you can come up with so many ideas. I mean, it's such a versatile sugar. A combination of a dark green will create the effect of a moss. So quite a few of interesting effects given by this rock sugar. And it's quite easy to store. You can store it away from humidity. I've showed you that container which I had on the side. I'm pretty sure on one of the PDFs it is mentioned where you can get that kind of absorbent out from. There is a website who does sell this product, but it's not food grade product, so you need to separate that from food, but it does absorb the humidity very, very nicely. You can also buy the dehumidifiers, you know, the ones which do cost around £1 or £1.50 in supermarket, and normally you put those under the sink in the kitchen to remove the humidity. Those granulas will also work for removing the humidity. So as you can notice, we are up to 134 degrees and the temperature goes up very, very quick. So soon we'll reach the point of stopping the cooking process. So we've got 138, 39, 40. So we are done with the cooking. So I'm going to stop the cooking process. That will just help my sugar not to raise the temperature more than 140, as the sugar will carry on cooking even if the heat, the heating source have been turned off. So you need to make sure that you put that into some cold water to stop it completely. I will just quickly wipe the bottom of the pan as I don't want too much moisture, and I'm going to add the royal icing that was freshly prepared. So I'll just put this in here and then take the bowl and everything else away, as I need to get my tray. And I did say about my tray that it's going to be greased, just to make sure that I will be able to remove that rock sugar when it's done. And now in here I will start mixing, and as you can see, the royal icing starts behaving, getting a lot of air into the sugar. So I will kind of start beating this mix of hot sugar and royal icing, helping this to expand in size. Okay, you see, so it starts growing, grows, and that goes quickly onto my paper. Yeah, this will cool down, and then I can break it into pieces and place it somewhere, as I said, away from humidity, and use it later. You can also use any pre-shaped tins, like metal tins, grease them with some spray, and then you can practically create any shape you want. You see, that's how it looks like. If you can see the texture, I will show it to you on the other camera. I think we can see better on the other camera. So now we are done with the rock sugar. Let's quickly cook some isomalt. To cook the isomalt, I need another pot which is clean. This time I would suggest you to use the distilled water. Now if you don't have distilled water, it's better not to add water. You can start by just melting the isomalt little by little. I got some raw isomalt. It's from Squire's Kitchen. So I will show you actually how to cook it with no distilled water. Then I will add more isomalt and put a bit more water, just to kind of give you the both insides. So I will just turn the heating plate on. I will start with a lower temperature, allowing the isomalt to melt. So I will start with a small amount. I will let this to melt before adding more isomalt. As you can see, I'm using stainless steel tools, and the pot is made out of stainless steel. Yeah? So you just need to wait till the isomalt starts melting, then you add more, and you increase the amount of isomalt you want to cook by adding little by little. Cooking temperature will be exactly the same, will be 180 degrees Celsius. So again, we need a thermometer to check the temperature. But that will save you of buying the distilled water. I personally, because I want to kind of work quicker, I intend to use the distilled water, and the amount of water I usually use is just approximate. I will always add as much water as is needed to get the wet sand consistency. But you see, the isomalt starts melting even if we don't have any water. So if you don't have distilled water, better not to use any kind of water, because the tap water or the mineral water contains so many minerals, it will turn up the color of the isomalt from clear to caramel. Okay, so literally that's what's going to happen. It will start melting, and then when you get this to a liquid stage, you add more isomalt and you cook. But it is quite sensitive, so you can burn it very easy. And to avoid this from happening, I'm going just to put a bit of water, my distilled water, and then I will add more isomalt. But I just wanted for you to get an idea about how you can do it, and also to prove that it can be done with no water. Now obviously when you start making like exhibition pieces or competition pieces, then you do need to add water, as you need a certain elasticity of your isomalt. so you need to make sure that there is some water inside, and sometime you might need to use some glucose. But for basic work, you don't need to worry too much. All you need to kind of keep an eye is to correlate the temperature. So don't start by just raising the temperature of your heating source to the maximum, because you can burn and caramelize the isomalt. Usually the isomalt doesn't get caramelized if it's below 220 degrees. But it's very easy with the sugar to reach that temperature. As isomalt is a sugar, even if it's a sugar alcohol, it's still a sugar. Now we say sugar alcohol, don't imagine that there is alcohol in the sugar. That's how it's called, because the chemical structure, it does have some similarities with the alcohol, but there is no alcohol on the sugar. So I'm just trying to help this isomalt to get melted. I will increase the temperature. I'm only going to cook a little bit, as I've got already some isomalt. I've got a mug which I usually jug, a Pyrex jug, which I usually use for clear isomalt. So I'm going to pour once it's cooked in here. And always try and protect the surface and your utensils. You can use silicone molds, you can use whatever you've got handy. I prefer to use the Pyrex jugs because they're easy to maneuver. They can also be placed in the microwave. But I also do have lots of silicone molds which I quite often use. When you cook, you can also use like those bits which are for literally making ice cubes or chocolate shapes, you know, those small silicone molds. And you can pour the cooked the cooked isomalt onto the mold. You can leave those pieces to cool down completely, and then you can store them into an airtight container. You can color them or you can leave them clear, and then just use as many as you need for a certain project. So you don't need to worry too often about cooking. You can warm it up into the microwave in increments. Start with 30 seconds and increase as you go along. Okay. I mentioned about having a thermometer for cooking the isomalt, but also if you don't have one, you can judge by the eye. Once all those granules are completely melted and all the liquid looks clear, then practically it's cooked. But yeah, ideally would be to invest in a thermometer, because that will help you to control the temperature of many other things like chocolate, or when you cook rock sugar, it's a bit harder to estimate when the sugar has 140 degrees. Plus, when you do a lot of patisserie work, ganaches and all sorts of mousses, it's always good to have a thermometer handy. And the one which can be inserted, like a probe thermometer, is ideal because it gives you a more accurate reading. When you use an infrared, that is not so accurate. Just trying to see, I think by mistake I put my thermometer in that water container, and it just doesn't work. So we'll just use another one. Just to show you how it's going to look like when it will reach 180 degrees. Now once I've got all the sides clean and the granules are not stuck to the side, I can just remove the spoon. Any drips of hot sugar, they can be cleaned off with water, but just be careful that if you've got a surface, working surface, which is sensitive to the heat, that needs to be protected. But in rest is all fine, as if you put any drips anywhere, if the surface is not deteriorated by the heat, then it's fine, because you can clean very easy with a damp cloth. It's just sugar. So I'm up to 170 degrees. So the cooking process, as you can notice, it doesn't take very long. If you want to color, for example, you should put the color at around 165 degrees and oops, and then just go to 180. Yep, so I'm all done. So now that we are done, we'll just go back to the table. Just turn this off and get the mug. Good, and I will just gently pour the content in here. Just little by little. I don't want to run the risk of breaking the jug. The jug is heat proof. It's absolutely fine, but what it can happen, you by mistake can make a crack in that jug, and without realizing you practically expose yourself to covered danger, because once you put the hot liquid it can crack on you. So you never know. It's always good to start little by little. And also that gives you the chance of noticing how clear this Isomalt is. All the air bubbles will actually escape and they will just disappear. Good. So we've got the bases, the backgrounds made, we've got the board created on that fondant. What we need to do now is to start preparing the Isomalt for blowing, and then we'll, as I said, blow the dolphins and start making the fins. Before to do that, just want to show you how this rock sugar looks like. You see, it's really, really nice and can be used for various decorations. Thank you, thank you. You are very welcome. You are very welcome. I do hope people are afraid of working with Isomalt, but they should actually work because it's such a lovely medium to work with. So versatile, unusual, and you can create lovely decorations. So what I'm going to do now is literally to start folding some of this Isomalt to get to the right consistency for blowing. To blow, I'm going to use some pumps, and they do have like a copper pipe. It's quite handy to actually have a silicone mold, like you know, the baking trays which are made out of silicone. Those are very good because comparing with those mats which are flat, if you pour on the mat it starts running everywhere. If you pour in here, you've got better control when you rewarm. But again, just to give you a both in depth, I'm going just to pour a little in here. That's how you will normally do it. So you will just pour the Isomalt and you will cool it down by just bringing in the cool part, cool edges towards the center. I'm just going to quickly show you, then I will carry on doing the method. So but I just need to wait till it kind of gets a bit cold, as if it's very, very hot. As you can see, it's super runny, so it just runs everywhere. In the meantime, I will refer to my naughty sale, which caused me so much trouble when I've tried to stick the tape. It was difficult to stick it, but now is, to be honest, I've never used a bottle made out of glass. Maybe that was the reason. I always had a plastic one, so the tape got stuck into it much quicker. But that was the one I had handy, and I thought it would do the job. In the past, I used to use just like pads or for water, so it was much easier to control. But anyway, it will turn out okay. So I'm just going to gently pull the silicone mat, but gently, because it might crack. It's just sugar. If it cracks, it cracks. It's just sugar. It's a bit tricky as you wear gloves. Obviously, it's not super comfortable, and you don't have such a good control. But if you do it gently, it should come out quite nicely. Yeah? So we've got kind of a weird shape to work with, but I think it looks quite cool. That will just be placed on one side. So going back to my mat, you notice that, see if you've got better viewing here. I need to just bring the edges towards the center. But if the isomalt is too runny, that's not very easy to do. I always need to get this towards the center. Yeah, helping the isomalt to cool down evenly. Or if you've got a large surface to work, it's even better because you can move things around. And always try and find a cool area where to work. If you put the fan over, that's not very good because it will cool down the sugar not even. So I will just try and put that to blow on one side, as I really don't want to get into troubles. I just want this to cool down evenly. Okay, so just getting this. Also, this is not going to be enough for the type of work I've got to do, so I need to pour more. But it will be good to start with, just to show you a few little bits and pieces. So along with my pump, I will also need a scissor. The pump it's literally just a rubber pump. It's got a silicone tube, which is food grade, but it doesn't make any difference because you don't practically insert this into the sugar. But the copper pipe, copper is suitable to get in contact with food. The copper pipe is a must. You either need a wooden pipe or a copper pipe. Now the wooden pipe was used in the past. It's not so popular anymore. Maybe in some countries in Asia, but now everybody's just using the copper. Okay, and I'm just going to place the sugar in, out, trying to cool it down. I just want to show you how to blow the little balloons, and then I will just work more isomalt to start making the dolphins. Now when I do the balloons, I want those to kind of look clear, but when I will do the how is it called, the dolphins, I'm going to pull the isomalt and get it more to look more like shimmered, not translucid. So I'm trying to cool down this piece of isomalt to be able to create a balloon. I know this isomalt thing is not a very popular subject because people are afraid of working with hot elements, but when we bake we work with hot elements as well, as you can very easily see. Yeah, you see, we work with hot elements and we burn ourselves. I burn myself in, with hot sugar. I can't say I haven't done it, but majority of my burns, they come from the oven, not from the isomalt. So, but you just need to work carefully and just always to think safety first. But sometimes it actually happens that we end up not doing what we know is good to do. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to pinch a little piece of this isomalt. I'm going to show you a kind of a different method of blowing. Yeah. I will just try and cup this around my finger, get my copper pipe and put this sugar around the pipe. Very, very easy, you see. And I'm going to start squeezing a little bit of air, but just a little. I want to make sure that the end of my pipe is not covered by the hot sugar, but I don't want to enlarge this too much because I've got so much heat inside. It will not work properly. I want to just make sure that, the sugar is set around the pipe, but I'm not rushing, as it will be enough time for me to blow the balloon. And I'm going to start squeezing some little air, not too much air, just a little at a time. Not sure if you can see how the air intends to expand. Ideally would be to put the fan now on top of my, let's transfer the sugar and just bring that fan. Start enlarging the bulb by, in front of the fan, as the fan will help the sugar to cool down. And the cooler, the better, as for some reason this sugar behaves unexpectedly. It gets the best shimmer and it builds up nicely when it's cooler, more than when it's hot. So, yeah, weird. So we cook it to get it to the right consistency, but then we need to cool it to get the right finishing. Okay, at this point I'm pretty much okay with what I've got. I don't want a huge bubble, I want a clear bubble. That's all I want. Okay, once this is gets sorted, I will just stop squeezing. While I can still move it around, it means they still got heat. Oops. Actually the base snapped, so I need to take it out. So that's one of my little bulbs. I will quickly try and make another one, put the air on the side and try and see if I can get another one out of here before it gets too cold. Again, just cut a small piece. Make sure you don't cut your gloves or your fingers. Okay, and then literally just wrap this around the pipe without digging the pipe into the sugar. You always need to pull a little gently so that you've got you know for sure that the end of the pipe is not covered by your sugar. So start just blowing. Always tidy up the base. Let's say for example in here I've actually pushed the air in one side of the bulb, which is not good because that will not give me a right uniform look on the bulb. I will just do it as it is. You need to control where the air goes. If it goes in just one side, it creates kind of a you know, a burst, and it will actually snap. You need to get the air to expand the bulb evenly. Good. And I think that would be also fine. I don't need anything bigger than that. Just the effect of the clarity will be nice for me to use. Okay, you see, easy, gentle, with no stress. I think it does worth trying. Good. That's just enough. I'm going to bring the little fan to try and help me to kind of cool down. Now this piece of Isomalt, you will go into that jug with hot Isomalt, as it's anyway too cold, so I can't use it for anything else. And I will just try and twist. If I cannot twist, all I've got to do is to run this above over flame and cut, or I can use a scissor. Sometime if it's too brittle, it might snap the bulb. So you still might need to warm up either the scissor or the end of the bulb. But I will just take the risk and see if I can do it. If I cannot do it, then all I've got to do is just to put the heating lamp on, or my spirit lamp, and cut. But I think I'm fine. So I've managed to take it out. Now with the base, that can be cut with a hook knife, or because I'm going to stick it to the decoration, there is no point of me doing too much at this stage. Okay, so now we are going to get the jug with whatever we've got left, and it's still hot, but not as hot as it was before. But start folding, aerating to create the correct consistency and temperature for blowing the dolphins. So let's go in here. Now for blowing, the perfect temperature is somewhere around 75 to 80 degrees, so it's quite warm. But because we've got the pump, we don't actually keep the hands on the sugar very much, so that's fine. When it comes to pulling, we aim for about a temperature between 35 and 50 degrees. Now the cooler, the better. I did mention previously that the sugar behaves nicely when it's cooler. Whenever it gets below 45 degrees, it's not very easy to pull, to be honest. You need to be quite fit, which is definitely not my case. I might be mentally fit, not every day, but majority of the days, but definitely my body is not super fit, and I've got weak arms, so I can't really stretch it properly. So I need to work with temperatures around 45 to 50 degrees. Still looks alright, but I don't get the perfect shimmer. I said the perfect shimmer is achieved when the temperature is quite low, because then that temperature along with the correct aeration of the sugar will give that beautiful shine. But it's still going to look really, really nice. Good. So the same sort of thing, I'm trying to bring the edges in. Yeah, it's still runny, but unfortunately I cannot rush this process. It will not, you know, take very long. But what's going to be different comparing with what we've done previously with the bulbs, we are going to get that kind of a shimmery look, not translucent. We will incorporate air, and that will just look change the look of the Isomalt completely. It will turn up kind of matte instead of clear. Okay, just bringing the edges in. Again, just move to a different spot as that area might be already warm. But just bringing in whatever I got here. When I start folding and pulling, I intend to do it in the same direction to make sure that I incorporate those pockets of air uniform. So just imagine that you've got like a honeycomb where you've got a nice structure, and every you know, pocket of air is placed into the right spot, so all looks nice and even. That's practically what we are aiming for, just to incorporate those air bubbles and put them in the right place. If we start stretching the Isomalt on all directions, it's not going to work. So we want to cool it down till it becomes maneuverable, and then stretch in one direction only, so that we can practically create that lovely structure. So just going to fold this. The old method, the old style method, involved actually a kind of a different way to do it. It was like a very long kind of sausage, which we used to fold in 3 parts. It does work in the same way, but to be quicker, especially when you work on small quantities, you can just literally just overlap and do that in 2 parts. Okay, as I say, don't stretch on the opposite side because you still want to create that kind of a lovely texture. I'm going to pull it and then again fold this and then roll to kind of make the temperature uniform. Keep saying kind of, do this, but it's very difficult to say for sure this is how you need to do it, because it's kind of, so this is what you are aiming for. If it happens and you do it slightly different, it's not the end of the world, but it's something which you should aim for, to maintain that uniform temperature throughout and to fold this in one direction. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can fold it from left to right, right to left, but no up and down. Yeah. Again, stretch, fold. As I'm right-handed, it's just easier to do it this way. And then you can also roll and stretch and do the same thing, stretch, do the same thing, stretch, do the same thing. It's hard to say how long it's going to take because it depends the temperature of the room, the amount of Isomalt we've got here, or sugar. But you can notice that the look has changed. If I go to a closer camera, maybe you can see them better. Yeah, it starts getting that beautiful shimmer the more you stretch. Now, adding too much sugar again is not good, as putting too much air into the sugar, you will make the sugar completely opaque. So we don't want that to happen. We want enough air pockets to help the light to reflect beautifully. Yep, so keep stretching. You see how beautiful that is, and it kind of starts looking quite nicely. You don't need to add any white. It will look white anyway. Again, stretch, fold, stretch, fold, stretch, fold. Yep. Can you see what a beautiful shimmer? but it is quite hot. Now what I'm going to do, I will start preparing a little bowl of sugar for blowing to do the dolphin. I am going to stretch it a little bit more and then get one piece out from here. So I'll just fold, get a little bubble of sugar, and then I will cut this. Oops, it got stuck onto the sugar. Let's see, I think it's easier to see on this way what I'm doing. I will pop my finger here where I've cut and try and make like an indentation. Obviously the sugar is still hot inside. Then I will pop my copper pipe and grab this tightly around the pipe and then pull a little to make sure that I've got the end of the pipe not blocked by the sugar. Start adding some air inside. Once I can see the bubble expanding, I'm fine. Then I will start pinching. I do apply quite a lot of pressure in here, and then I will start squeezing again and pinching again to create that shape of the head. And then I will pull from the base to enlarge. So pinching the how do I call it, the mouth, yeah. And then I will also use a scissor, or you can use a knife, and put a bit of a shape in here. I don't want huge dolphins, as my display is quite small. I hope this makes sense. I will just also pull a bit more, and again just reshape. Oops, now I pinch a bit too hard and it snapped, but I can still, I think, use it on the other side. Okay, but I need to stop here because I'm in kind of a danger. It's still okay if I use it this way, but I pinched a bit. I've been a bit too harsh, and I've kind of ruined it, but I don't want to keep you for long hours till I make the fish. So hopefully the other one will turn up better. So I'm going to undo the base. Usually works by twisting, but sometimes you need to, as I said, warm up on top of the... I can correct this. I will show you how a bit later. Now this is quite firm, so it needs to go in the microwave. So while it goes in the microwave, we can kind of entertain ourselves looking at the bits. So we'll just put this in the microwave for about maybe 10 to 15 seconds. I will double check. In the meantime, I will look at my display. Let's see if that got to the consistency I want. Can you see that is soft, but it's still not uniform melted? So I'm going to pop this back in the microwave for another I've got 16 seconds left. Okay, in the meantime I will just peel off this piece of sugar which I've created. Yeah, I think it's a really nice texture. So that's going to be part of my design. I need to be quite careful because you do remember this piece of paper is filled with grease, and if I've got grease on my hands I can very easily drop things and ruin them, which is not great. If I wipe my hands with a damp cloth, then I need to dry the gloves, not my hands, obviously the gloves, because the moisture is not good. So in here I've got my sugar melted. I did mention about those silicone molds. They are great. So what I'm trying to do is to cool down that sugar. When it cools down, it comes off. You might think, oh my god, it messed the whole thing. It did, but everything is going to come away once it gets cold. Very, very easy. Yeah. So all I'm trying to do by pulling is to practically incorporate some cold air, which will help the sugar to drop the temperature and also to come away from the mold. And I can start folding again, getting to the stage where I can blow in at the dolphin. Hopefully this time it will turn up good and I will control the pressure better. It does happen sometimes though, it's not the end of the world. Again, just stretching. Now because I've got this Isomalt remelted, it's very hard to say now which direction I should go. I will try and keep everything in one direction as before, but some of the pockets might be put on the opposite direction. That's fine because it was already structured, so it shouldn't be any problem. So I'll just stretch, pull down, stretch, and I will just overlap to speed up the process of cooling. So after making those little dolphins, I will make the fins, the tails, and we'll start attaching the decorations, and it shouldn't take very long to do that. To attach the decorations, instead of using a glue, I will use the heat. So heat will be the glue for this kind of topper. Okay, see, as it's cooling down, becomes much easier to be maneuvered. Bear in mind with your gloves, I mentioned about the nitrile gloves. I've tried rubber gloves. They do work, but I don't like them. If you get the very thick ones, are quite chunky. There are special gloves which do protect against heat as well, but they are even chunkier and it's very hard to work with them. Vinyl gloves don't work at all, so don't even attempt to do them because they will just stick to your sugar. Now I've got all sorted. Again, I'm going to get that bubble out. And I'm going to roundin and then look for the area where I've cut with my scissor. Pop my finger in. I'm aiming to get the same thickness between in the sugar between my thumb and finger as I move around. Yeah. Now I'll just get my copper pipe, insert that and secure the sugar quite tightly around the pipe. Pull to make sure that the end of the pipe is not covered by the pipe. I will start pinching to create the shape of the head, stretching to enlarge the size. Again, pinching, blowing, pinching, blowing, just to control every feature of this little creature. And then with the scissor, I can shape a little. I do hope it makes sense whatever I'm doing here, but all comes with practice. All you need to do is just to kind of play with sugar and get confident in maneuvering the sugar. It's like with anything else, when you start doing sugar work and sugar flowers, you always get panic, the things can break, but it's just sugar. Okay, that looks all right for me. So I'm going to put that in front of the fan just to wait, because see, if I will leave that in one side, it will just drop automatically because it's so hot. So I need to give it a bit of a support till it cools down. Now while this is cooling down, I will just quickly pull some the tails and the fins. Just trying to put this on one side. Let's see if I can cut this. Okay, we'll just leave this to cool down on one side so that I can do the tails before the sugar is cooling. Just trying to snap this and remove without warming. I hate using the torch because it sometimes melts the sugar and makes it to stick to the pipe. Good, so I'm just going to stretch this sugar And then using the scissor, I will just cut the tail. Unfortunately, because the sugar was a bit too cold, it kind of gets snapped. So I will need to rewarm this a little, but I will show you how to rewarm it without destroying it. This will go in the microwave for further 30 seconds. But while this goes, 15 seconds. You might not even need 15 seconds, we'll see. I will double check the other side panel. Okay, let's have a look in here. Somehow you need to be multi-skilled, as you need to refer to the microwave and look for your elements. And when you work on your own piece, then it's fine. But if it's for a demo, you don't want you keep your audience waiting for things to happen. Yeah. So I've just peeled that gently. So I've got this background which I'm going to set along with the other bit which I've created. I'll put the splash somewhere and set the dolphins in a sec. Okay, so those will just be used for the final decoration. So my sugar was in the microwave for literally 10 seconds. As I'm not going to blow, I'm going to just pull the tails and the fins. I don't need the whole amount to have that kind of uniform color. It will be fine just using this kind of consistency. Again, I'm going to stretch, pull, and cut in sort of a V shape. I can also stretch a little bit more and then cut this little tail. Let me just show you from a closer angle what I do. So we'll just stretch to get a shiny part out, and in here I will just pinch and enlarge. Then between my thumb, sorry, my glove is, my thumb and my finger will just stretch like a lip of sugar, and then cut 1 and 2. I can stretch the second one to try and mimic and reach the size of the other one. Then I can just pinch and cut. So that's going to be the tail. Now what else do I need for a dolphin? Just some side fins, which are quite small. So literally just pulling and cutting. That's one. And then I will just stretch this a little bit more and cut the second. There is no stress of making things to look perfect. If I carry on pulling, I can use those to make some seaweed. Even if it's white, I can use some spray. You can also color by just adding color. I did mention if you want to color, you can put the color at 165, then cook the isomalt to 180. And it will be fine. Carry on stretching to get more pieces out of here. Just another 1 or 2, it will be fine. And also what I want to show you is, say if I can just get out a little rope. So if I pinch a piece of sugar, trying to pull it, but not like a strip, it's more like a rope. I'm using a wooden dowel, and I will try and pull this. Oh, oops, kind of got a bit too cold. Yep, I can create other sort of decorations. Yeah, which can be used for adding a bit more interest to what you've got to do. But I think that's pretty much what we need. Another thing, yeah, I forgot about this, but I might need to put this back into the microwave just to quickly show you how we make a little flower, or you can use it kind of a coral thing. I will just pop this in a microwave for another 15 seconds and quickly show you how to do those. Again, you can color the isomalt, or you can just use a spray. I'm going to use a spray just to speed up the process. So those will turn up in looking like leaves, grass, like seaweeds. Those will be the tails and the fins. So at one point the sugar is not sticky, but it gets stuck to the mat. That makes it a bit more difficult to be maneuvered. Now obviously because it was on the microwave, now it's a bit too soft, but that gives me the chance to show you something else. I'm going to get a piece of this very soft Isomalt. I said it's soft, but you can cool it down and it becomes quite maneuverable. So you get a mold or a veiner. You place the Isomalt over and you emboss. And you get a really nice texture. And obviously you can shape it, leave it to dry in whatever shape you want. That can also work like a little coral. I also have got this mold. Just going to show you how you can use this. Again, it gets stuck to your gloves. If it does, all you need to do is just to touch your hands onto a cold surface, and the low temperature, or put that in front of the fan. A low temperature will help you to clean off your sugar from the gloves. Place that on the mold and then just push in. Now obviously we need to have this kind of mold. If you don't have it, it's pointless. But you can get another type of mold if needed. But that looks really cool as well. So imagine you can make this as a collar around the cake. It looks really, really pretty. I love it. But in our case, we'll just consider this as a different type of coral as well. Going now back to the wildflower, which I've told you about. So I'm trying to get a shimmer sugar. Those gloves are horrible. Just trying to get this nice and cold and a bit shimmered. So the more you pull it and the more you cool it, you get better shimmer, but we'll just stop here. And what I'm going to do is with the scissor, I'll just take out kind of little petals. Kind of. Should stop saying this word as it gets annoying. I get annoyed. I bet you do. Okay, so elongated cone shapes maybe will be the size, the shape. To kind of associate, kind of, yeah. Stop saying kind of. They look like elongated cone shapes, do they? Anyway, that's enough, so we don't need more than that. Okay, to stick those together, for example, I can use some of my melted Isomalt. If that's still soft, is not. It kind of got cold. I need to practice and stop saying kind of. Good. Let's have a look now how we assemble everything we've got. The fan will need to be placed somewhere away from the surface, because if we are going to work with the flame, we run the risk of causing an incident. We don't want that to happen. On my spirit lamp, I've got some alcohol, and I've covered it with cling film to make sure that the strength of the alcohol is preserved. This is the alcohol which I normally use for the spirit lamps. But if you keep those spirit lamps covered just with a plastic lid, the alcohol intends not to be so powerful in time, and then you don't get the right you know, flame for doing your sugar work. So make sure that when you don't use it, you protect the top with some cling film. So I'm going to light up if I can. Be very careful with a spirit lamp. Sometimes it's difficult to see the flame and you can very easily burn yourself, so just be aware about this. I'm going to start by setting the fish. I'm going to set the fish and then paint the details, because I might touch and I might ruin the painting. So warm up the end with some heat, and I will just stick the tail. That obviously needs to go in front of the fan to cool down. Then with the wing, I'm just going to get the wing, light up and set this on the fish. Now by mistake I've touched the body with some melted sugar. Should come off as it was not very hot. Okay, and that is the fin. I will show you how to spray and finish the dolphin in a sec, but that's my first dolphin. Let's do the second one. Now I did say about the end of this I don't even know how to call it. It's not a muzzle, it's not a mouth. Anyway, it looks a bit untidy, so I'm going to try and sort this out by just melting and reshaping. Good. Then I will attach the tail. Now I've got a bit of an excess here. That gives me the chance of showing you how to get rid of this excess. So I will just melt the sugar. Obviously you need to do it gently because it might crack as the piece is already cold. And then you can gently run your scissor around. Or you can warm up the scissor or the knife as well. But once the sugar starts melting, it does work fairly quick. So you just need to be patient. That's all you need to do when you work with sugar, and not just with sugar. Generally, you need to be patient. Then I will tidy up the end. Okay, get the tail. And stick the tail in here. I might not even need the tail, as I might put just half of the body showing, but we'll see. And then I've got the wing, or the fin, which again I've set very easy on the side. So that's my second dolphin. I've got my air bubbles. So what I need to do is to set this coral. I'm going to warm up the end of one of those elongated shapes, and I'll pick 1 or 2 pieces at a time. Good. They look quite nice, like sort of fantasy flowers, I would say, but they will be nice as corals. We'll just add them along with the other decorations, and we'll make everything to look super pretty. So 1 or 2 pieces on one time will be fine. Very easy to make. Very easy to make. Good. That's all we've got, so we need to start setting our decoration all together. So I've got my board, and then the Isomalt plaque is quite sturdy, which is great. Then I've got my plaque, which I'm going to set like this. Now, in order to set it, you've noticed I've got a bit of an extra sorry, extra piece of sugar in here. I will melt this piece. So I'm getting next to my spirit lamp. I also have got a torch, like the kitchen torch. I intend to use that one only when it's absolutely necessary, as the heat intends to melt the sugar very quick, while the spirit lamp has got a softer flame. That is a really strong flame. But in some time you do need to use it, because you cannot lift the spirit lamp in certain directions. You don't have so much flexibility when it comes to spirit lamps, so you do need to use that one as well. Good. So I'm trying to set this in here. I might need to use, just looking for, I might need to put this in the microwave and warm up a little bit of my Isomalt, just to give a bit more support. I've mentioned about this rock sugar that it doesn't actually give enough support to the decoration. So what I might need to do is just to add a piece on the back, but in order to stick it, I will need some extra Isomalt. So I'm going to put my spirit lamp on one side here to make sure I don't burn my hands, because I really don't want this to happen. And I'm going to get some of that melted Isomalt, put in here, then attach my decoration. So let's see if that's done. Okay, I don't need this Isomalt super runny. I just need it soft enough to be able to set the rock on the back. Yeah, then I will turn this the other way. I've got to set my splash somewhere. Oh, sorry. Just trying to think where I should place it. Maybe somewhere here. Hard decision. I think I'm going to put that right on the front, and I need something to support and set my other display, my other piece. I think I'm going to place it somewhere in here. But in order to place it somewhere in here, I will need to give a bit of support. So I might need to use another piece of my rock sugar. I'm going to grab a bit more of my runny Isomalt, place it somewhere in here. It's kind of quite warm, not hot but warm, so I've just pulled the glove in order to cool it down and make sure that I don't burn myself. Also, you need to bear in mind that this decoration, which we've made using that baking paper, parchment paper, it is very greasy, so I need to bear in mind when I set this that it doesn't collapse, as it's not going to attach to the sugar in the same way the pure sugar does. I'm going to pull that in one side. I want this nice effect to be visible. You see the holes? So I'm trying to set this so that it still shows the beauty. Trying to get some of this Isomalt, the runny one, and place it right here on the back. To seal those decorations. I really want a big chunk of sugar, because I did say I've got a lot of grease on this one, and I want to make sure that it's stuck properly and it's not going to to collapse. Okay, good. Let's see if I can lift up the camera a little. I think it makes more sense, so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, let's see with the dolphins. First of all, I am going to spray with a bit of color. So I've got some bronze in here. Just give a good shake and add a touch of shimmer. I did say you can use the airbrusher, or you can use even a brush with some dust. I'm just trying to add this touch of bronze to the rock sugar. Then I've got a spray, a green spray, which I can use to shimmer some of those decorations. Yeah, just to highlight and to stick them on. I can either use the torch or I can use the spirit lamp. I'll just show you how I do it here. Yeah, so we'll just warm up to make sure it gets stuck in here. Then also I do have some baby blue, which I can use to shimmer the dolphins. The other one will be set the opposite way. I can also do them in grey if you like. There is silver available. What else? I've got my leaves, which I will also need to, but I think I'm going to put those right at the end. Let's see with the corals. I want those in kind of bronze. I'll probably change my glove after spraying, as it's all dirty. It's all contaminated with color. Again, this bit. I want them to stand out, and as I've got everything either kind of greeny, bluish, this will look quite good. And also I can add some gold dust to it, or gold in here. With those little pumps with gold, sometimes they don't work as good as you would expect to see. So I'm going to pop my gloves away and then change the gloves, because they are a bit greasy, and I'm just afraid if I will touch my decorations, they might also they might get ruined. So just put some new gloves, but on top of the cotton ones. Sometimes if you find that your hands are very sweaty, you can use 2 pairs of nitrile gloves and a pair of cotton gloves. I will just preserve and keep everything dry. So let's go back. And to set the dolphins, okay, I'm going to pinch one small piece of melted Isomalt, which I'm going to attach somewhere here. We'll just wait for this to cool down before setting my dolphin. Ideally would be to get my you know, the fan to cool down in stages, as if I don't cool down, obviously everything will get ruined. So trying to cool down this piece of sugar which I put here. This is the support for one of my dolphins. And I will attach another one right here, or I can put block blob of rock sugar. I think I'm going to do it this way. So just put a bit of rock sugar here, which I will leave white, no color. Let's try to warm up some more Isomalt. Then what else? I will melt this bit in here. Just be careful when you put your cold items on top of the flame. It's very easy to crack them, so just be careful. They might snap because they've obviously a different temperature. So I will set this in here. Again, I need to keep an eye because I've got this piece of sugar which is quite greasy, and it doesn't have the same sort of strength like the sugar which is not greasy, if that makes sense. Now my sugar in here is still not set, but it's definitely much firmer. I will still leave it for a little while till it cools down completely. Ideally would be to put it on front of the how is it called, the fan, but if I put it in front of the fan, I will have nothing to do while this is cooling. So just try and set here. You see, because it's greased, it's very hard to stick. So that was one of the reasons why I've decided to put this piece of rock sugar in here, trying to set my fish in here, the second one, as I knew that being greased, it will not allow me to set my decoration properly. This is kind of good. Just trying to look for something to protect my hand and spray with some more green to secure the leaves. And let's try and have a look. I'm going to put all the leaves in here. And just give them a spray. Even when you spray them, they don't stick as good as they do if they are pure sugar. But anyway, they do behave better than if they are greased. So we'll just warm up the end of this seaweed. As it's such a small piece of sugar, usually it tends to get melted very quick. Oops, that was a mistake. As I said, I'm going to put the fish here, so I don't want that to kind of be placed right in there, maybe like here. Also, you always need to imagine where you are going to set your decorations, otherwise it can get a bit confusing. Good, so I'm going to put the rest later. As I need to paint the fish, I'm still going to pinch a small amount of Isomalt, which I will attach here, just to make sure I've got enough support for my second fish. Because as I said, I cannot rely on that sugar piece, which is full of grease. So I need to make sure that this will be stable enough for me to set the second dolphin. I'm going to place this in front of the fan so that it cools down. In the meantime, I will paint details of the dolphins, the eyes. I'm using edible paint and a very tiny brush. You just need to excuse me as I need to put my glasses, as I can't really see a thing. So with the first one, let's move to a closer camera. Yeah, what I'm going to do is I will put a little blob and then a C shape underneath. If you need to adapt and just enlarge the dot, feel free to do it. Then, where is my paint? And then just add sort of eyebrow. Then you put a mouth and you do that like a flick with the corner of the mouth up so that it looks like it's smiling. And then you can also mark a few details in here if you like. Also, if you want, a few little dots, waves on the body as well. Okay, let's do the other one. Again, just a dot to start with, then a C shape underneath, and then that wide eyebrow, those markings, a smile, and if there are any lines on the body you want to add. Great, now that we've finished painting, we can attach those fish. This is the time when it comes handy to have a torch, as it's literally impossible to melt the sugar in here to attach the fish. I wouldn't melt the fish, as the fish has got a very thin layer and it can melt, but I would definitely go into this piece of sugar and start applying a bit of heat. So as you can see, the flame is quite strong. So if you imagine sometime when you work with very small items, if you like pieces of sugar, if you use such a strong flame, you end up melting the whole sugar. Whenever you secure the dolphins, so if something which you've already painted, be careful. It's very easy. Oh, it's very easy to mess your paint. Sometimes it takes like 1 or 2 or 3 attempts to secure. Don't despair. It doesn't mean you've done something wrong. It just means that you need a bit more attention. I can also get a small piece of sugar, melt that on my spirit lamp, and just stick on the back near to the head. And I can also secure the dolphin in 2 points on the body and also on the head. So literally stacked on 2 points, it makes things quite firm. Just oops. This camera is keep moving. Oops. Keeps moving. For God's sake, doesn't want to listen. And it's the most important one. It gets dizzy. Just bear with me 1 sec as I will put this bottle underneath and hopefully help the camera to stay in place. Okay, good. Sorry for the hassle. Now, so I just need to double check to make sure that the fish is set in place. I'm going to put the other one as mentioned in here. So because that's quite close to the board, I don't need to stress too much on securing this fish. So I just need to gently melt this piece of sugar and secure the second dolphin. As it's going to touch the board, it only needs a little touch to balance. Then maybe to support, I will also set my, I don't even need to stick it because it just fits perfectly like it was from here. So I'll just set that underneath. I will put my corals, just warming the end. Set one of the corals in here. Okay, the other one will just go on the other side. Or they can be attached anywhere on the whole design, that's no problem. I can also put the rest of the grass wherever I think it works. One more which I think it will fit in here. And the only thing left is to actually set the bubbles. But with the bubbles, if for example I want to put the bubble on right, like is kept in the mouth of the fish, I need to trim this part. So what I need to do is to get my spirit lamp and the knife, and I will also need a damp cloth to clean the knife continuously. Okay, so I'm going to warm the blade. It is a bit time consuming, but the effect I think it will be great. So if you can bear with me till I finish, it's fine. If not, you can watch this later. But you need to heat up the blade and cut the bubble. So I think we've covered quite a lot. How to make the rock sugar, how to cook the isomalt. We talked about coloring. What else did we do? We created the board and we said about what is the best way, what's the best way to secure those isomalt decorations. Is literally just to stick them onto an isomalt board plaque. If you don't have that available, then you can use royal icing to stick the isomalt pieces onto fondant. Isomalt and all the decorations made out of isomalt should be stored into an airtight container or away from air. And obviously when you put that decoration onto a cake, it's very hard to protect against air. So what you might need to do is to glaze the decorations. Use some edible glaze that is available to buy as a spray. Definitely PME, they've got the edible glaze as a spray. You can also buy edible glaze as a liquid and dip your decorations into that liquid, but if you've got large decorations, it might be just easier to buy the spray. And that edible glaze, it will protect against the moisture, because that's what it happens. The moisture will attack the decorations. I don't think you can see what I'm doing. I'm just cutting the bulb. Yeah, literally I've just cut with that hot knife to make a hole into this bubble. And oops, I'm going to attach it right there. So just warm up one side and try to stick it right on top of the mouth. Hopefully it's going to stay. Just to mimic that the dolphin is playing with this bubble. And I hope that you can see it. And I will just quickly do the same thing with the other one, but this time I'm only going to cut a little bit out from this bubble. Again, hitting the blade to clean up the sugar, as the sugar intends to build up when you cut. So the damp cloth will help you to clean the blade, maintain the blade clean. So we talk about coloring and also storing. You can cook more Isomalt and store it into an airtight container or a Ziploc bag. You can buy pre-cooked Isomalt if you think it's easier, and you just use as much as you need for a certain project. I think it's always nice to have an idea about how things work and to cook your own, and you can color and you can get the right effect instead of just buying ready cooked. But obviously that depends on everybody's preference. The price is also different. Oops, as it would be much cheaper to buy raw Isomalt and anyway, I broke the bulb, so it's pointless now. Just because it got stuck. Using that dumb cloth did not help, as it got stuck on my glove and I broke the bulb. But never mind, as we've managed to put together a display which looks quite similar with what we've got there. So we've created different effects, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And it was kind of a bust, so you can start creating your own decorations. If not a full display, at least some sails or some little corals, or God knows, something nice on your cake. So I hope you've enjoyed, and see you soon. Enjoy the rest of the day and have a lovely week. Bye bye.